Workday, a finance and HR system.
Time for the Saturday sprint at the Belgian Grand Prix after a week.
Right then, everyone, welcome back to the channel. We are live for the Belgian Grand Prix, the sprint race. So it's sprint race weekend. For those who are a little bit new to Formula One, there's been a format change over the last couple of years, and normally Saturday afternoons would be qualifying. However, they've decided that actually it would be better if we had a little sprint race. Just I think it's a third race distance and so on. And we are live, and we have got live tracking for that as well. But there has been a delay to the start because of weather. It is currently raining in Spa. Let's switch over to the screen. I'm just going to bring up the screen now, so as you can see, everyone is currently in on the starting grid, or the starting line of the go ahead. I mean, it's. I'm surprised with the delay because it's not. It's only just started raining. It's literally only just started raining, but they have delayed temporarily at least. Hopefully, it's not a long delay. I will have all the tracking and all the live timing right here on the F1 fan zone. If you are new to the channel, please feel free to like and subscribe. Also, put your comments in. The comments do get shown. In fact, I'll show you exactly where the comments get shown. Comments get posted here. Let us know what you think of the race. Let us know what you think, who you think is going to win. Just a quick reminder of where everyone is on the grid. You can see there is Verstappen is on pole for the sprint. Oscar Pistori, and he's first, by the way, he hasn't competed in 3 years. And this is obviously his first season in F1, and he's managed to climb into second place on a high downforce setup, and it is raining, and he is on a high downforce setup. That could work well for him. It'll be very interesting to see how that transcribes into whether he or not he's. Is he going to be looking backwards, defending off the Ferraris, or is he going to be able to try and mount some sort of challenge against Max Verstappen? Time will tell on that. The Red Bull, as always, has been quick. Of course, the Ferraris in third and fourth. They need a good race. The Ferraris. They need a good weekend. The last few weekends they've not. Oh look, we've got race start local time 17:12. That'll be 16:12 in the UK where I am. So that is about 7 minutes to start. About 7 minutes. So yeah, we'll just, like I said, there's a bit of delay going on here. We will have the live timing and the as you can see, let's go back to that screen there. This graphic I've got from Formula1.com. This will give me they've given me a virtual map here. We'll be able to track where the drivers are, the positions, and the timings, including sex timings, etc., etc. So this is good. This is a good place to watch if you are unable to watch on local TV or satellite TV. I do also have Sky F1 on as well, so I can actually see on the TV coverage, and I can tell you now, lots of bollies up. The gazebos are up on the grid at the moment. The rain is coming down heavy, very heavy. It is going to be a wet race. It is a short race, so if it stops raining, there could be pits for. I mean, I'm going to guess they're going to start on full wets. Looking at that rain now, I would guess it's going to be starting on full wets. So we'll see how this transpires. It's got to be full wets. Looking at the rain, I can see it coming down. The gazebos, it's really chucking it down. All the engineers are huddled around the cars on the starting grid, so it's going to be, I think, full wets. But there's no mandatory pit stops in a sprint, so you are simply racing until for whatever I think it's 20 laps, something like that. And there's no obviously in the race. You have to make a mandatory pit stop. You have to use a 2-tire compound unless it's raining. Race control delayed start. Is that they delaying it further? So currently, the last message we got was it was due to start at local time 17:12, which is 16:12 UK time. But now it's saying race control delayed start. Let's get some commentary.
Over the top of it as well. There's Lando Norris starting P5 whenever we get underway.
And of course, Spa known for their water, like the geysers.
Yeah, there's a lot of water coming down. It really did chuck it down. I mean, literally 10 minutes ago, there was no rain at all, by the way. Literally 10 minutes ago, there was no rain. Now I can see it's like a river down through the Rouge. Wow, it's
removing the tent to have the real feeling.
I'm not too sure the mechanics would appreciate that, but unless you want to come and stand in the rain with us.
There with Mercedes.
Are you not on the grid, Toto? I feel like you should be standing here.
Yeah, for loyalty, Yeah, loyalty.
Yeah,
It's.
And how big is the next one that is coming? It's as big as this one?
It's cracking banter. It's cracking banter, though.
It really is.
And that's the honestly. Look, nice
so
little,
delayed
nice
start is what we're seeing. Delayed start.
But that is the level you're at now. You're ready to go for a sprint.
Coverage here on the F1 fan
there is
centre.
better
The race
weather.
starts. Once the race starts, we will.
But
let's just mute that.
A geyser is a.
There we go. Once the races start, we've got live tracking. For those who are just joining now as well, we have got live tracking. Let's bring that up on the screen so if I can see it. Live tracking there, so your positions as well on the left-hand side. The timings will also be there as well. So this is a great place if you want to keep up. And by the way, this is actually more live than the live TV coverage. And I know that sounds a bit stupid, but the TV coverage, there's a delay by about 20 or 30 seconds. Here, the delay is by literally a couple of seconds. So sometimes you can see what's happened here on this channel, on this setup I've got here, just before you actually see it on the TV. So we're live on YouTube, and we are live on Twitter. If you want to watch us if you're on Twitter and you want to watch us on YouTube, feel free to go over to my bio. There's a link to the YouTube channel there. And of course, if you do join on the YouTube channel, you are able to post comments, etc. If you do put comments in on Twitter, I won't necessarily see them. So if you are watching on Twitter, feel free to check out and comment on YouTube. Also, like I said, if you are new here, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get some more commentary. I'll be back in a second.
And that means if you're starting on the wet tyre, which incidentally, these Pirelli wet tyres with the blue sidewall, they will disperse about a full bath water's worth of water, about 80 litres, every second at 300 kph. So you're going to see an awful lot of spray coming off the back of the cars. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. But also, just look at this, because it's going to start to dry out. A dry line will start to form as a result of all that water being chucked in the air. And at some point, somebody probably will be brave enough to jump onto the intermediate tyre. Now, the pit lane loss is going to be a factor. How much time do you lose to change the tyres and go back out on a set of intermediates versus how much time the intermediates gain. Well, the intermediates can gain a vast amount of time.
The next, we've just seen a team radio saying that there is due to be more rain, heavy shower in 2 to 3 minutes. The rain is stopped. I can see the safety cars driving around, presumably to check track conditions. Obviously, the big thing, and in particular Spa, there's so many hills and slopes and so on that it can become a bit dangerous on the bottom of the slopes, for example. Now, a lot of circuits are quite flat, or they've got, there's not so much in the way of hills. You've got a lot of gullies here, so the rain comes down the track and into the gullies, and that's obviously going to be a concern for the drivers, that you're going to get some aquaplaning at high speeds, and that's why, in particular in Spa, one of the reasons why Spa is, when there is rain, it can be a little bit dangerous to drive. On other circuits, for example, if it was this level of rain in Silverstone, it's relatively flat, and I don't think it'd be much of an issue. But here in Spa, it can be a little bit of an issue. Let's get some more commentary. We are waiting for the start. It is a delayed start. If you're just joining, we are waiting for basically the weather to change, and I'm just looking. I've got the Sky coverage on as well. I am able to see what's going on, and so far they're all huddled under the gazebos, which are keeping the cars and the drivers dry on the starting grids. So we are just waiting, and now we've just got a weather radar here. It looks, once this, it does look like it's eventually going to clear. Of course, what we're going to say, so there are no scheduled pit stops in a sprint race. There's no mandatory. In a normal race, in a normal full length Grand Prix, you have to make a mandatory pit stop, because you've got to use 2 different compounds of tyre, except when it's raining. But in a sprint race, you don't. However, they are obviously going to be starting on wet tyres. Now, if it stops raining, they will probably have to change to inter at some point in the race, depending on how quickly it dries up. I'm just trying to look. I mean, they're definitely going to be starting on wets on here. I can't foresee it's going to be anything other than wets. And it's going to be interesting because different cars came with different setups. For example, Oscar came with a very high downforce setup. The rear wing on that McLaren is very steep in its angle, which means they've taken a gamble. They have gambled that over the weekend that they're going to be racing, and they may need the extra downforce. Some, on what is traditional, if it's dry, a low downforce circuits. And what we have seen is, oh look, I'm just looking at this rain. It's absolutely chucking it down. What we have seen is a lot of cars have come with a low downforce circuit. They've got a shallow, if you can imagine a rear wing, it's imagine this is you got different length, or different, let's go that way, different angles, and the more shallow it is, the lower the downforce, because as the air hits that rear wing, it's a bit like if you move your hand through water and you leave it flat and you leave your fingers closed, you get quite a lot of resistance. But if you open your hand up, the water can go through and you can move your hand more easily through. And think of that on the rear wing. So some of these cars have come with a more of a steep angle rear wing, which is going to give them more downforce, and some have come with a more shallow rear wing, which is going to give them less downforce. Now that is going to be better. Now on the circuit, where if it's dry, you want a lower downforce because you want the extra straight line speed. If it's raining like it is now, you want a higher downforce. So those teams that have taken a gamble to go for the higher downforce setup, and once you've gone and you've set your car up from qualifying, you can't change it. You can't go, oh well, look, it's going to rain, let's put a new rear wing on, let's adjust our, you can't. So you start as you mean to go on. Right, let's get to let's listen to some more commentary. And there's no set time yet, or no rescheduled time for the start yet, but let's have a quick look at what's going on, or quick listen.
It's all about geology and geography, this place. And we get it every year, and this is just the snapshot of it. The gazebo's up, the delayed start, but hopefully not for too much longer. So let's bring it back. Full wet start.
Shall we do this?
Full wet start, as we are going to have with the safety car start.
The latest update from Niels is that they're expecting the rain to stay around until 20 past. At the moment, they would then expect to start the race behind the safety car, which clearly mandates a wet, but we're currently waiting for the weather to improve.
Laps. And that could, bring this in towards an intermediate. Now, we are not going to see a slick for the rest of today, but it's going to be between a full wet, and there are going to be drivers further back pitting very early, I think, for a set of inters. And it's going to be a bit like Japan last year, for anyone that remembers. Sebastian Vettel came in on the first. I think Nicholas Latifi did the same, and they got huge benefits from that. Do you pit early, or do you wait? There's only 15 laps to then make up that time. So that's where the call is on a knife edge. And Sam's strategy board would go into overdrive with the wets and the inters. But I think it's only going to be really one way. If it goes back to wets, it'll be pretty much rained off as we're at now.
We have a maximum. We have a maximum of an hour on the timing clock to complete the entire race. Once we get going, there is a window to complete things. The sun looking slightly brighter, but the rain continuing to fall. So we are still delayed. Here's Charles Leclerc on the radio.
So this rain should stop in 5 minutes, and then we have a gap of an hour, okay, with no rain.
Okay, that's interesting. So according to Ferrari, the engineers have said there that they believe that the rain is going to stop within the next 5 minutes, and then they've got a gap of about an hour. Obviously, it's quite late in the day in Belgium. It is currently, just gone 5:15? And I can see it does start, it's looking a bit brighter now. It's still raining, but the sky looks brighter, almost looks like the sun's trying to come out. So let's see how this plays out. We will, of course, have the live tracking and etc. on screen as well as soon as it gets started. Yeah. Right, so we are currently waiting for. Let's just get this going here. So we're currently waiting for the start of the Belgian sprint race. There are going to be question marks if we don't get a full race going on here, or if we don't get a race at all. There are going to be question marks as to why, in a place like Belgium, where it's and Spa, where these rain showers are not at all uncommon. Why are they leaving it so late in the day to have this sprint race? Because what do you know what I mean? It's very late. It's 5:20 in the afternoon in Belgium. So the start time is meant to be 5 p.m. local time. Is it too late in the day? Knowing what Spa is like, knowing that it's so common for these showers to occur and the chance of delay and so on. Is it too late in the day? Should they have scheduled this for earlier in the day, knowing that at least if there's some rain, that light won't become a problem and so on? But obviously there is a limit. There's a limit on how late they can go here. So but they are the forecast, according to Ferrari, the forecast, I can just look at the screen now and I can see a rainbow, which means there's some sunshine. But the forecasts are that the rain is moving on, and they will have about an hour, roughly, which we don't need an hour. We need about 30 minutes, an hour of no rain. They will be starting, I would imagine, on the wets. I can't see. I haven't seen. They haven't got tyres on at the moment, obviously, because they're keeping them warm. They're all, for those who can't see on their TVs, they are all on the start line, on the starting grid, with the gazebos up and everyone huddled in around the car trying to keep dry. But it looks like the rain is starting to stop. I think they just need to get on with this, get a start time scheduled, and get on with it personally. So for those who have just joined, we have got live tracking and we have got live timing. That will all be here on the F1 Fans, and we are live on YouTube and we are live on Twitter. If you want to comment at any point, please feel free to do so. The comments get posted just here. And if you are watching on Twitter, but you prefer to watch us on YouTube, feel free to check out in the Twitter bio. I should call it Twitter. I keep calling it Twitter. It's not called Twitter now, it's called X. If you're watching us on X, Twitter, X, whatever. If you're watching us on that platform with the blue bird and an X, then feel free to check out the bio and join us over on YouTube if you want to comment as well. So we are currently rating. Let's bring up the live timing screens. So of course I will move between screens. So when it starts, this will be the screen that you guys all see. But at the moment, obviously, just waiting for a start time. We're 20 minutes past 4 here in the UK, 20 past 5 local time in Belgium. We are still waiting for the start of the Grand Prix. And let's get some commentary going on.
Follow the safety car in and put an inter, or I need to start the rolling start or the standing start on an extreme and then box at the end of the first lap. This is what is important to know.
Of the surface water off the track, and then we send the safety car out, and at 17:35 we'll have the formation lap. Race will start behind the safety car. Hopefully Bernd Mailander will be in operation.
We do have tyres going on, full wets going on. Formation lap will start at 17:35 local time. That is in about 10 minutes, 10, 12 minutes. So it looks like we are getting ready to go. Full wets I see going on onto the cars right now. Let's bring you some commentary.
Because we've gone from what was looking like a fully dry race to now not a fully wet race, but exactly what we've seen in every competitive session so far this weekend, whether it was qualifying for the Grand Prix or sprint qualifying this morning, which is a wet and drying circuit. And as always, the question will be, when do you change over? And indeed, in a 15-lap contest, do you change over? As Sam Collins was just explaining back in the studio, these are the permutations, these are the question marks that the teams will be running through. Who takes the gamble, if they take the gamble, and when? So I can't wait to see it start. I hope we don't spend too long behind the safety car, because the more time we spend behind the safety car, the less time we'll have for that changeover.
This is the team right ahead of us. Make sure they don't block us.
Formula One cars on full wet tyres, which can disperse something like 60 litres of water a second. So let's get them out there at race pace. Let's get this thing started. Let's get this thing racing.
Let's do it, shall we? The sprint race, they're not far away at all. The sun is now shining in Spa, but for how long? Who knows? We'll wait and see, but we'll be counting down to the start of this sprint race coming very soon under safety car, and indeed with wet tyres, I'd imagine. Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Laura Winter of Will Buxton down there, having a look at what is now a sunny Spa-Francorchamps, and we're expecting plenty out there.
Have to start on wet.
Yes, formation lap. Wait, everybody.
So that was Logan Sargent speaking to his race engineer and getting the answer that everyone will be mandated to start on the wet tyre. But you don't want to be on it for too long.
So I think it's going to depend how long the safety car's out there for. If the safety car does a number of laps, then it's going to dwindle the chance of putting in an inter and doing a good job. If you're starting towards the sharp end, if you're starting at the back, you'll do that. Take the gamble. If you can only pit for an inter when the safety car's coming in, you have to stay on the full wet whilst the safety car's there. And if it comes in early, I think everyone's got to follow him in, basically, because the full wets will not be quick after just a couple of laps. The track dries so quickly around here. We've seen it already this weekend. It's gone from being very much inters to being slicks in Q1 to Q2. So the track dries so quickly, especially with 20 cars out there. I just think inters are going to be the way to go as soon as you can get them on. And I think everyone's going to follow the safety car in so long as we get going early enough.
So it's entirely down to race control, how many laps they run behind the safety car. That is at the race director, Neil Vitic's entire discretion. We used to have two safety race directors in charge of the safety car. We're down to a single one across the entire season, alternating with Eduardo Freitas last year. The official message has now come through from race control. The formation lap will be started behind the safety car on the wet weather tyres. So now everyone getting back into the place that they were at the top of the hour, trying to get back into race mode, anticipating that. George Russell's just disappeared from the car very momentarily. He'll be back there in a few moments' time. And there is the confirmation the formation lap will be started behind the safety car on wet weather tyres. And then the drivers will assess, and then we'll get those radio messages when those feel it's time to get on with it. They're all racing for 8 points at the end of this sprint. That's what the winner gets for this.
Yeah, the reward is quite small compared to the risk, it feels, for the next 15 laps. 8 points, absolutely worth it. Anyone outside the top 8 is not going to score anything. But of course, they're all going to dream of making something happen. And even Nico Hulkenberg from the back, with this sort of conditions, things can happen. Is he going to pit for inters, or does he just stay out on the full wets? Hope there's another safety car and take advantage that way by going long. So there's all sorts that are in play with the strategy now.
Okay, the sun in the distance as we look at this enormously impressive circuit that has been part of the Formula One World Championship since the very start. 1950, the first time, part of the original setup that we saw for the Formula One World Championship. They changed from the big 9-mile version down to what we have today. And we're going to give you an example now of a start in wet conditions.
Right, so we are just waiting now for the start of the Belgium Sprint Grand Prix. The live timing and tracking will all be here live on the F1 Fan Zone. Oh, I'm out of breath. I just went to get a drink downstairs, and I'm in my office, and I'm out of breath. I'm so unfit and unhealthy. Now they were putting on full wets. Looking at so the Ferraris have still got full wets. I don't know if that's the same for everyone yet. Be interesting to see if anyone has gone with because they're going to have a formation lap. The sun is out, so I wonder if anyone's going to take the class that McLaren's got full wets on. It looks like everyone's going to be on full wets, but we got a few minutes yet until, and once you've done the formation lap, I wonder. I do wonder if anyone will go, you know what, let's stick the intermediates on, because it's almost certainly after a couple of laps, it's going to be intermediates, almost certainly. I wonder if anyone will take a gamble and stick the intermediates on at the start. Formation lap will be started behind the safety car on wet weather tyres. So there we go. Race control has determined that everyone is going to start on the full wet tyres behind the safety car on a formation lap. Does that mean that there's going to be no standing start? Which would be very disappointing, by the way, if there is no standing start. I mean, I'm looking at it, the sun's now out. Let them race. Okay, they'll do a formation lap. I tell you what, I know what's going to happen. They'll be going round, and there'll be people on their team radio saying, some of the drivers will be saying, "Oh, this is intermediates, guaranteed." And if people are thinking about intermediates, then it should be a standing start, in my opinion. And you're denying what could be a good start here, an entertaining start. Right, let's get. So they're all sat in the cars. We are about 5 minutes away, I think, from starting. So they're all sat in their cars now. We're just waiting on the formation lap. I'm hoping it's going to be a standing start. I really do hope that's a standing start. I know the formation lap is going to be on the safety car. The safety car sits at the front of the grid now. Some of the engineers are starting to leave the track. Oh dear, drink. Zesty drink, thirsty. Right, so just a reminder of where we are starting. You can see on your screen right now, Verstappen starting on pole, followed by the McLaren of Oscar. And by the way, just very quickly touching on the McLarens, I said after the British Grand Prix, which was obviously a couple of weeks ago, I said that the McLarens were quick. And I know Lando Norris, it's his home race and so on and so forth. And sometimes a driver can outperform a car. But for me, the giveaway of how good McLaren's upgrades were working was the fact that Oscar was right behind him. So you had two McLarens challenging. And then I said after that race, look, for some reason, I believe that these McLarens may well be quite quick. I think their upgrades have worked. And then they went to Hungary. And now here they are here. They are, in my opinion, they could well be the second fastest team at the moment. And despite the fact that the Mercedes and the Ferraris have had upgrades, and the Ferraris have been sort of almost mid-table really the last couple of races, and then Mercedes have been a little bit backwards, a little bit forwards, but the McLarens have gone up and they've stayed up. As we see here today, they're on the front row again this weekend after front row last weekend and the weekend before. So what does that tell us? What does that tell me? It tells me that the McLarens understand their car. And Mercedes and Ferrari they've had upgrades as well. It's not like McLaren have come with a load of upgrades or put on a load of upgrades that Mercedes and Ferrari didn't. It's just that they've worked better. And they've worked better for the very simple reason of that they understand the car. I don't believe Ferrari and Mercedes have figured out the true reflection of the car, because they put upgrades on and it doesn't actually improve. If anything, it might have even made them worse. So, and the first thing, if you understand your car, then you know what its strengths and weaknesses are, which means you know what upgrades to bring in. If you know that your car, the floor of your car could be better, if you know it's the front wing, if you know, and we're at that stage now where after this race weekend, obviously we have the summer break, and then basically there's not really going to be any upgrades, because firstly it's expensive to bring upgrades to other parts of the world. We get after here, we have got a couple of races in September, and then we move on to places like Singapore and the US, Brazil, and so on, and they're far away races. And it's a lot more expensive and bear in mind in the year of budget cap, it's a lot more expensive to move cars or move parts around. So what you'll find now is a lot of the money, a lot of the engineers' time and the designers' times, etc., aren't going to be on upgrading this car. It's going to be on building next season's car. And next season's car is going to be an evolution of this season's car. So whose car next year could be good? The teams that understand this year's car are likely to be able to evolve next year's car in a more positive way. So the McLarens could be interesting next year. In my opinion, they could be really interesting next year. We'll have to see, obviously. Hopefully, it won't be such a dominant season by one car that's got a rocket ship attached to the back of it. Oh, look, we got a Mexican wave going through the crowd in the grandstand in Spa now. Right, we are just waiting now for so we are 2 minutes, T-minus 2 minutes to it's a formation lap start. So I'm hoping we still get a standing start, but we'll see that. So the teams all have to start on wet tires, because that is the order of the race control. Basically said everyone's got to start on wet tires on the formation lap behind the safety car. I just hope once they've completed the formation lap, they'll be able to do a standing start, because it should be drying, and it will dry quite quickly. There will be pits here, by the way. This sprint race actually may well be one of the more interesting sprint races we've had, because what we are going to have at some point, they're all starting on wets. At some point, they're going to want to change to inters. Who is going to make that change first? It's going to be this could be an interesting sprint race. We don't normally have in sprint race. We don't normally have pits. It's only because of the conditions where obviously they're not going to run the wets for 20 tires on a drying circuit. Could we even see anyone take a brave change and put on a set of softs or some sort of dry compound, a slick compound? Could we see it? Is it possible? Right, let's just looking at here. Okay, let's get to the live commentary. They are about to start in a few seconds' time. The drivers of the engineers have all left the grid now. It's going to start a formation lap. Let's get to it.
Formation lap for the Belgian Grand Prix sprint. We are about to run 15 laps minus whatever we do beyond the formation lap behind the safety car. We've had a half an hour delay from where we expected to be. The rain came down. We put the awnings up. The awnings have now come down, and Bernd Mailander, Jolyon Palmer, leads us around this famous circuit.
And there is plenty of spray as the drivers build up their speed down towards Eau Rouge. Plenty of spray coming off the back of each and every one of them. But I would say this is plumb intermediate conditions on track surface. It doesn't look like there's huge standing water from what we've seen so far. And the intermediate will be a lot quicker than the full wet. The full wet is made to disperse more standing water, more water just outright. Whereas when it's for 15 laps here, you're going to chew through the full wet when that's not the case. And I think right now, intermediate is the order of the day. But this is a brilliant shot at showing how murky the Kemmel Straight can be when it is these conditions. And that's our limiting factor now. It's not track conditions, it's spray conditions for when we can get racing. Low speed, not an issue. High speed, Kemmel Straight, that is going to be our critical point.
Okay, it is 15 laps. This was what was scheduled. 15 laps, no mandatory pit stops, and you get 8 points if you win, all the way down to 1 point if you are inside the top 8. How patient have the fans at Pouhon Corner been? This is what they want to see, and the cars are out there on the circuit. Everyone will be feeding back on the radio. We'll bring you that as soon as we possibly can. They'll be talking about the visibility, and they'll be talking about what tyre is right to be on, because it is going to be really, really interesting to see if anyone sticks with the wet tyre. I'm not sure. The only benefit would be track position, but the Inter, a far grippier, a far better tyre if you've got the visibility and you don't need to clear all the standing water.
It's got to be Inters. I think you've just got to come in for Inters, no matter if you're Max Verstappen or anyone else. If Verstappen stays out on a full wet, and the rest of the field pit for Inters, it'll be like Lewis Hamilton all over again.
Yeah.
And he'll be last. You have to pit for Inters. The whole field has to, surely. Even on a reduced race, it's that much quicker. I think you'll make it work. The only way is safety in numbers for a full wet at that point. I think they've got to gamble for Inters.
So the question now becomes visibility. That's what's preventing us getting back underway and going to green flag racing conditions for the first time this Belgian Grand Prix weekend. We ride on board with Carlos Sainz. We'll try and bring you some driver eye view as well of what the drivers out there are seeing, and they'll be assessing this all the while. Team engineers, Jody, will be asking the question about conditions to their drivers right now.
We haven't heard any of that, but that will be the discussion, you're right. And I mean, the conditions, it really doesn't look that bad on the track. We can see for ourselves that the visibility on the long straights is pretty tricky. The safety car continues, and Sainz there pulls out from Piastri. We couldn't even see Piastri there for a minute. So that shows you, look at the behind that few cars there, and it takes a while before you see Norris and co. And even then, Hamilton slots in behind in the spray, and you can't see them. When you're strapped in, you're sitting low, the visibility is worse than it is for us as well. So it's really tricky. That's our limitation. I still don't think we're even that far away from going with the spray, though. Another lap or two, and we're there.
So they're giving the drivers a couple of laps to learn behind the safety car, to assess conditions. Race control, they have a plethora of screens in front of them in the pit building that you will know, and they will be looking at all the information. They will be listening to the driver radio as well, trying to assess conditions. They're going to err on the side of caution because of that stretch from Eau Rouge Radion and onto the Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, it's definitely Inters.
The whole field will pit.
Yeah.
They have to. They have to pit. It's going to be we're getting ready for some absolutely ridiculous looking Formula One when the safety car comes in, because the whole field will have to come into the pit lane behind. Otherwise, you're going to lose too much staying on a full wet.
So it's going to be a flurry of activity down there in the pit lane. George Russell has said that if George Russell is feeling it, the rest of the field will be feeling these conditions as well. It is a tyre that is simply designed to evacuate the water. It's not a good race tyre.
And imagine the stress. If this is going to unfold as we think it might, you're going to have everyone coming into the pits together. You've got to race in the pit stops, but you've got to have a release in the pit stops with cars flooding in, cars flooding out. It's going to be bedlam in there. It could be it's going to change the order drastically from where they qualified legitimately earlier on. That's going to go relatively out the window.
Yeah, so if you look, Verstappen has got a...
Yeah, it's definitely enters.
It's for 4 laps behind the safety car. 4 laps. And then it would be a rolling start.
I think it's a smart decision.
So Max Verstappen backing that, and it's going to take us down then to a 12-lap contest. And let me tell you why it's going to be a rolling start, because if it was a standing start, the 5 red lights would go on and everyone would be in the pit lane.
Yeah, that's a smart move from that point of view. I think if you're on the front of the grid anyway, rolling start is the best case. Means that you really shouldn't be passed into turn 1, whereas standing start in wet conditions is very tricky. But everyone is going to have to take into surely.
Let's hear from Carlos Sainz then.
Track is okay to drive, more than okay.
So Carlos Sainz looking for another appearance into the top 3 of the sprint. He was there in Austria. This is what it looks like trackside at the moment.
Okay, at the moment the plan is for 4 laps behind the safety car. 4 laps. And then it would be a rolling start.
I think it's a smart decision.
Glistening in the sunshine that's out. We know now we're a couple of laps away from racing action. It's going to be, with everyone coming into the pits we're expecting, it's going to be just a scene of chaos down there. Verstappen, yes, he comes in first, he has the first bay. He's got to then release into everyone else coming in. Where are the gaps going to be? It could be with Ferrari or McLaren. They've got second drivers very high, 4th and 5th. There you see Leclerc right behind his teammate. They've got to try and create some gaps, and that could be the chance for Verstappen to emerge again. Behind that, I mean, if you've got a stream of cars coming in, it's very difficult for the mechanics to... They've got to, A, do the change, that's bread and butter for them, but release their cars when there's a sea of them coming in for their own stops.
So it will be a 12-lap contest. The information that you heard relayed to Max Verstappen has now been sent the way of the other teams as well. The timing page in our commentary box is updated. It will be a 12-lap sprint. So the sprint gets even shorter. Remember, we have about an hour to play with before it rains again. That's what we were told earlier on. And the sun illuminating the mist down there at turn 9, where earlier on today, Lance Stroll found himself on slick tyres on a wet surface and into the barrier. The story of the weekend all the way through has been rain throughout. We've had about 2 hours maximum of dry conditions, and it has led to a really engrossing weekend. We're about to see the next chapter of it in a few seconds' time, as we see no rain expected for the next 20 minutes. And we're expecting things to take around 30 minutes to complete. We've lost a couple of laps as well in there as well. So it's going to be about 24, 25 minutes before we see the checkered flag win.
So this is lap 3 of 4 expected laps behind the safety car. On board with Max Verstappen. Quite a nice view, safety car. Looking resplendent as ever. And the track not looking too wet for him. Verstappen, when you're at the front in these conditions, it's dreamy. You have an uninterrupted view, especially when the safety car peels off. You can just focus on yourself. Everyone else will have the spray to deal with, and that is your pole position privilege, if you like. The further back you go, the worse it gets, because the spray just lingers in the air. And if you're Joe or Hulkenberg on the theoretical back row, it's not going to be particularly nice on the opening lap. And at high speed, the spray will be worse as well. This is at low speed behind the safety car. So the spray, when they're unleashed at full racing speed, is going to be that bit worse, and that's why we're waiting. Look at the track conditions. They're absolutely fine.
So we're waiting to get things underway. For the teams in close proximity to each other, of course, at the start, everyone's in close proximity to each other. But if you're looking at the 2 Ferraris, they're line astern, the 2 Williams, they're line astern, 2 Aston Martins, they're line astern. Do you send one round on for 7 kilometers on a full wet tyre when you could be gaining on an intermediate. There's a lot of decisions being made down there on the pit wall. This is a day that strategists really earn their money.
Well, here's the next question. There are going to be some drivers. Fernando Alonso, 15th. Lance Stroll, 14th. So Alonso's going to have to queue up behind his teammate if he wants to pit. Or he can choose to do one lap on a full wet, have clear view. Might that be the quicker way?
It's dry quick. Yeah, you could definitely already drive, I think, with Inters.
Understood. Thank you.
Everyone's thinking the same. But it's whether someone can do one lap on a full wet and do an overcut effectively, rather than pit with everyone, have a compromised pit stop, and then be released into traffic, have no visibility, and whether one lap on a full wet might just be quicker than a traffic lap on an intermediate. That's what the drivers further back are going to have to weigh up.
You're looking at the highest point of the circuit, down below on the other side. We're hearing there's going to be another formation lap, so race control tick it down to 11, and they are erring on the side of caution because of that sequence of corners through Eau Rouge, Radion, and onto the Kemmel Straight.
So we believe we've got one more lap. The safety car will come in at the end of it. That's what we believe so far.
Narrative, this conversation began on Thursday when the drivers were talking about visibility. It's clearly possible to race out there, but if the visibility is not right, they will not get things underway. McLaren are getting ready. You can see that they're having a little bit of a tidy up of the architecture down there with the wheel guns.
I think if delayed more laps, then you start to think, you just stick on the full wet and slid around and keep the track position, deal with it.
Yeah, my decision is what we discussed on the grid.
Copy that. Copy that.
If we think it's the right thing to do, depending on what others do.
Yeah, we think it's the right thing.
Is it worth the pit stop?
Well, I know this is a tad frustrating at home when you're watching a race like this. There is no rain expected in the next couple of moments. These are the best drivers in the world. They're all thinking about switching to the intermediate tyre. It appears to be okay. Visibility-wise, we'd like to see a little bit of driver's eye view. We saw a little bit of Daniel Ricciardo a few moments ago. This is the fantastic sweeping corner of Blanchimont that takes you to the final chicane. And that chicane has had various different versions. It used to be known as the bus stop for the usual. This used to be public roads in use until the end of towards the end of the 90s. I think it was 97 when they got rid of the public road aspect. You're on board with Daniel Ricciardo. This is what the balance is. Clearly enough grip out there on the tyres they're on, but it's the visibility they're now contending with before we go to green flag racing.
That's fine, that visibility. It's low speed into the bus stop, absolutely fine. It's fine across the start finish now. It's really clearing. The sun's still out. It's slipped soon.
I was waiting for that. I was wondering at what stage that was. Okay, so here we go on board with Oscar Piastri. This is what he sees. And this is, let's be really straight with you, this is the part of the circuit where they're monitoring visibility.
It's absolutely fine here. It's the Kemmel Straight isn't always particularly bad. The safety car slows, Verstappen slows, the spray comes down. And if it picks up, Piastri has a little check of the mirrors whilst he can. Now he picks up, and let's see. It's not bad.
Okay, so on that evidence, race control have said it's time to go racing for Formula One in the third sprint of the year. The safety car will enter the pits. We will have a rolling start procedure. Do you try and send it to full racing conditions on the wet, or do you go for a much better tyre, the intermediate? That's the question for all in the field. I think they've already got their answers. They'll then be executing their plans.
Yep, I'm pitting for Inters, whether I'm starting at the front or the back. It's just the quicker tyre. If you're left out there on the full wet, even if you gain track position, you can lead the race, you feel like a hero, you're going to get swallowed up by the whole field on a track that is not particularly hard to overtake. The spray's coming down, which will help visibility behind others as well. You have to pit for Inters. So what on earth happens next? Are we going to get 20 cars through the pits? Are we going to get 15? Is some people going to try and do a one-lap hurrah? With all these extra laps, the chance of doing a one-lap hurrah on a full wet, even that's getting harder. This is not full wet conditions by any stretch.
And remember how important the minor points could be to the teams 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th in the Constructors' Championship. They are separated by 9 points. So even 1 point for 8th place could have a big impact on your prize fund at the end of the year. And your prize money is decided by your finishing place in the Constructors' Championship. Bernd Maylander is making a bid back to the pits. That's another consideration. So the safety car is going to enter the pit. So you've got to leave enough of a gap if you're Max Verstappen for Mailander to get out of the way and get back into the pit lane. So that's an unusual consideration for the man starting from the front of the field. Hearing at least Lance Stroll box, he's going to go to the intermediate tyre. He won't be the only one.
It would shock me if it's just Stroll with the gamble. No one wants to head out there just yet and give their hand away. Aston Martin, everyone's just hiding in the garage right now rather than getting themselves prepped. Surely it's obvious what everyone's going to do. They're all thinking the same. Just is it both cars from every team, or do some cars stay out there for a full wet? Let's keep an eye on.
Oh, we are glued together. This is third place Carlos Sainz, always at home in mixed conditions. There is going to be so much to decide here, but I think it might be in the pit lane and not out on the racetrack. We go to green flag conditions all around the circuit. The third sprint of the year is about to get underway, but will it get underway in the pit lane? Yes. Okay, Verstappen goes through, he goes on. So then does Charles Leclerc, late call for Pierre Gasly. Ocon is sent round, and so there's a total mix now, but all of the action, as expected, is in the pit lane.
I'm surprised Verstappen stayed out. All the lead drivers then have come in. The second drivers haven't chosen to queue, so you've got a load of drivers coming in. There is even going to be a little bit of queuing, I think, for some teams. Piastri gets away cleanly, and he's got to bid for the lead of the race here.
That is a huge moment. There is a tight moment for the Alpine of Gasly into the path of Fernando Alonso. Loads of action as we came into the pits. I think it was the bottom half, so it's about 10 cars who came in.
Sainz has lost out. We're on board with Carlos Sainz. Remember, it started third here, and that's Lewis Hamilton ahead in the Mercedes. Hamilton had a 5-second stop, so they had to wait for others coming in. We said that might be an issue, trying to get a release, and Sainz has lost out significantly with that.
Okay, we go back then. We are at racing conditions. We are racing on lap 1 of 11. It is Verstappen, Leclerc, then Lando Norris, Esteban Ocon, George Russell. They decided not to come in and brave a very busy pit lane. And it is very much the case that Oscar Piastri is the driver thinking about the contention for the lead here. He did not get his progress impeded by anyone. It was a quick stop.
Gasly and Perez also with a load of gains. So Hamilton's lost out, even though he's got ahead of Sainz. Sainz has lost a huge amount in the Ferrari. Gasly is behind Piastri. Then it's Perez, who was due to be starting 8th. So good stuff then from Red Bull to get him jumped up.
You need to box this up.
Confirm box this lap, Max. Box this lap.
So we've seen one half of the field come in to change tyres. It's time for the next half. You've got to remember, though, how tricky it is. How very, very difficult it is to master these conditions. You're out on the intermediate tyre. The track...
Tyre position 7. Tyre position 7. It's important. What's the white lane?
On board with the man putting pressure on Max Verstappen.
He's 1.7 seconds quicker than Max in the middle sector. This should be done. Verstappen peels in. What can Piastri do? So long as he's clean through the final sector, he will lead the sprint.
Piastri has got past Zhou Guanyu on the wet tyre as well. Piastri is having to pick his way past cars who haven't pitted. Surely the rest will. 10 laps to go. Oscar Piastri, who has never been in the top 3 in Formula 1. Oh, is that going to be tight? Very tight between Max Verstappen into the path of the second.
You need to box this up.
Yep, confirm box this lap, Max. Box this lap.
Piastri roars past. Oscar Piastri takes the lead with Max Verstappen on pit exit, and that gamble for intermediate tyres works for the Australian driver, and he's got P1 in the race.
It was always going to. I can't believe Verstappen didn't come in on that first lap. Piastri leads. Verstappen is still second. It is game on at the front. Look behind. Gasly's third, Perez fourth, Hamilton fifth, Sainz sixth. Even though they lost out, they're still ahead of everyone else that stayed out on the full wet.
So now it's about firing up that intermediate tyre. What an extraordinary sprint race we are seeing here. The visibility is low on the Kemmel Straight. That is Perez all over the back of Gasly in the battle for P3. And now we're all on the intermediate tyres. Welcome to the lead of a Formula 1 race. Oscar Piastri, McLaren, and the strategy call. Absolutely perfect. And for the first time since Formula 2, Oscar Piastri's back in the lead of a race.
And Alex, he's been so quick in these conditions so far this weekend. Piastri leads in conditions he'd have been hoping to be on the receiving end of right now, leading. He has a clear view ahead. Verstappen has not got terrible spray, but as the speed picks up, you can see it there, and Verstappen emerges. He's lost his pole position privilege of having clear view ahead. He's got to make a move on a man that's been super quick. all sessions so far.
Gasly made up an absolute hatfall out there, and it really was very tight with Lance Stroll when he rejoined. But Gasly and the Alpine team, Gasly searching for his first top 3 finish of the season so far. We're in the sprint. It's a shorter race, lap 2 of 11. And Max Verstappen, if he wants to continue this run of being P1 at the end of proceedings, which we're used to, he's got to catch and pass Oscar Piastri.
And there is no DRS in these conditions. He has not got that advantage either at the moment. Red Bull with great straight line speed. It's quicker in the straights than the McLaren, even in the wet conditions. But with the DRS, we've seen them be mighty. Long straights here, the DRS will be powerful. But Sergio Perez has the same issue. The top 2 are running away. Gasly's done well to be there in 3rd. Took full advantage pitting on the opening lap for the Inter.
The last track's hot. Look after these fronts.
Red Bull crawling over the back of him now as Perez gets on the gas down towards Eau Rouge. And that's your big overtaking chance, but no DRS to help.
So you've got to do it the old-fashioned way. Perez being caught by Hamilton. Hamilton, who looked really, really confident early on in these conditions. And that is for the lead of the race. That is the spray being kicked up by the papaya McLaren of 22-year-old Oscar Piastri, who is showing the world champion the way at the moment. But Verstappen's got the gap down to 0.8 of a second.
Yeah, he's close. He is close, and he's not going to give this up. Verstappen was meant to be beaten to pole in Hungary by Lewis Hamilton, as Hamilton looks for the wet part, even on the short straight down to Rivage. But we think in the long game as well, keep his tires alive for another 8 laps. It's a long circuit that takes a lot of energy. But Verstappen, even though it's a sprint and there's the difference of 1 point, is not a man not to go hunting for every single win. And this is another one for him.
And Gasly in the top 3. That is only going to be his 5th lap in the top 3 all season long. Logan Sargent is being investigated. That will be a penalty for speeding in the pit lane for the Williams driver in 17th. A reminder for you, only the top 8 score points here. 8 points for the winner. The race leader currently, Oscar Piastri. This is the moment that we saw Norris come in. Max Verstappen was in the pit lane. Oscar Piastri took the lead.
Yeah, it was fairly comfortable at that stage as well. Shorter distance out of the pit lane, but Piastri was up to full speed.
Fernando Alonso, off the road, into the gravel and out of the sprint to bring out the safety.
Purple C14 for Verstappen 0.9.
That's a pull-on for Fernando Alonso. It's a fast corner, and you don't often see Alonso making an error, but he's got all the way. I think he must have clipped the wall there. You can see where he's just gone in front ways, and he's out of the race. He's having a miserable weekend, isn't he? Fernando Alonso didn't pit first. His teammate did, and it gets worse for him.
Not the way he would want to celebrate his 42nd birthday. The most experienced Formula One driver of all time is out of the car and out of the race. And
can tires save 10, 11 and 12 for overheating and go on the wet patches?
He got a puncture or something. It's the only reason now you'd fit another set of Inters from 6th and 7th. That stop for Sainz, that cost him hugely. Should have been there right with Piastri and fighting for 2nd or 3rd, but obviously Ferrari didn't release him in the space that I guess Perez was released first. Red Bull had the first pit exit, then Mercedes, and then they had to wait for those two to come through. Otherwise, Sainz would be released into those guys. Gasly, Alpine must have done a cracking job to get stopped and get out. It's all about where the gaps come. It's kind of luck of the draw at that point. And then you need to have driver in sync, release the clutch perfectly as the green light illuminates, and you get away. Let's see what to Fernando.
So this is Fernando Alonso. He was chasing.
So just let you know where we are at quickly. We do have a safety car after Alonso hit the gravel. Let's get back to the commentary.
Just brushes the wall, but there shouldn't be any damage. They're just beats in the gravel, I think. So that was on the tail of Mika Hülkenberg, and the car was getting loose already. Then he touched the curb, or maybe it was just the right rear touched that painted surface, which is always slippery in these conditions on the outside of Pouin. Since so many drivers go off there in the past, I think it was already on the edge, and then he got onto the white painted line, and round he went. And Fernando was our first retirement.
When a driver has his skill and capability is doing that, it tells you how tricky these conditions are. I'm not sure we got the point out when they were pitting. It wasn't a slam dunk. It was the right tire to be on, but Piastri still had to feel his way in the grip. They had a lot of laps behind the safety car. This is hard for a rookie. Only his 12th Grand Prix weekend.
Yeah, and I said it would be safety in numbers if you stay out on the full wets, and Max had that advantage because already Piastri was having to pass. It was Zhou. There was another couple of drivers further back. Magnussen stayed out, Tsunoda, and that just slowed Piastri's outlap a little bit, which made it closer than it should have been. But he did a great job. Came in, the McLaren crew were nailed on, got him out there quickly, and doing a good enough lap on the Inters. He had a tyre advantage at that point.
Yeah, I was struggling with some understeer there towards the end.
Keep those intermediates alive a little bit longer. He'll know, though, that he's got a job in his hands. The good news is Pierre Gasly is in third and shouldn't have the pace to run with the top two, so there'll be a break behind. So it's not going to be a Ferrari and a Mercedes trying to come at Oscar Piastri as well afterwards. But it is Max Verstappen.
Safety car is out after Fernando Alonso's first retirement from any race so far this season.
Okay, Max, so intel is that Piastri left-hand side tyres already suffering.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's drifting everywhere.
Welcome to Formula One. Oscar Piastri, the champion, lurks behind.
Yeah, and this is something else to take into account now. You're using dry patches on the exit of La Source. Surely we're not going to go to slicks before the end of this one. I cannot believe we will. But when you're sliding around on the tyres, you're hurting them. And when you in practice or qualifying, you can do an on-lap, an off-lap, you can play around with it. In these conditions, it's not the case.
As well judged in the end. The safety car will be in at the end of the lap. This is the moment that Max Verstappen saw that he had lost the lead of the sprint.
So he's done one lap less on his tyres as well, which will be an advantage. The good news for him is Gasly was in the car behind and didn't manage to jump him as well. So it's only one position he lost. And Oscar Piastri, dry conditions in Hungary, and quite high degradation. Now, the team said there was floor damage, there was mitigating circumstances. These intermediate tyres, they're fragile. And that's something he's probably got to learn right from the sharp end here, running the Inters, leading a sprint.
Okay, Max, so intel is that Piastri left-hand side tyres already suffering.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It's drifting everywhere.
The back of him, but Hamilton was joining that group. We're now condensed together again with the Ferraris. Lost 3 places each, as has Lando Norris. Here's Kevin Magnussen.
Safety car in this lap.
So at this pace,
Understood.
I think it could be dry.
Could be.
I think you should think about it. There's
I don't agree.
Okay.
Dry line already. Kevin Magnussen saying, have a look, see what you think out there. Lance Stroll took that gamble earlier on, found his way to the barriers. There's not a lot of laps left, but they are the longest laps of the year. 7-kilometre lap, 4.3 miles.
Yeah, it's deceptive. Having just 11 laps of Spa is like having sort of 17 laps of many other circuits. So 7 kilometres, so much to go into it. And there's a lot for Piastri still to do. If you're Magnussen and you're 18, you're at the back, have a look at some slicks. If you can get them working, you'll take the same gain as we saw the Inters over the wets. If you're anyone else, be steering clear of them right now and just focus on those Inters, because it does still look a little bit too wet. There's not a huge amount of time yet for the slicks to work.
There is a massive gap in knowledge between Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen chasing his 3rd championship of the world this year. Oscar Piastri only in his 12th Grand Prix weekend. But the talent for the 22-year-old Australian out front is sizable. This is his first Formula One restart at the head of the field.
Pressure on this man as well. Gasly.
it's drying very, very fast. So at this pace,
Understood.
I think it could be dry.
Could be.
I think you should think about it. There's
Understood.
a dry line already.
Understood.
Into the back of Gasly under braking there. He's looking racy. They're all looking racy as we go back. What an entertaining sprint we've had. The yellow flag is out in sector 3 already. I'm hearing in my ear that Yuki Tsunoda has gone round before we even got to the restart.
17th place, Yuki Tsunoda, as Perez a little bit wide. Hamilton might try and come towards him down to Eau Rouge.
Big run now for Max Verstappen, trying to reclaim the lead that he lost. And Oscar Piastri goes through Eau Rouge. We climb the hill through Radion Corner. It's going to be very tight between the two of them. Checking the left-hand mirror is Oscar Piastri. Look at the momentum. Look at the speed that Max Verstappen's got. And he roars through to retake the lead. Piastri ducks in to the slipstream. But Max Verstappen does the job and retakes P1.
And that is confidence from Max, more than anything. To keep that glued to a lead car through Eau Rouge is supreme confidence. And he probably knew that was his best chance. Take advantage of Oscar, maybe being a bit cautious at this time. And he just, look at this, tucked in behind.
full commitment. That's outrageous on a restart lap. What a fine way to take it through.
Dirty air, intermediate tyres, spray knocking around as well, and you keep your foot in like that. That is what made the pass look so easy in the end. He's already got a car that's better in a straight line, but that was just full commitment. He knew that was his moment, and that is Verstappen then to the lead. Short-lived for Oscar.
Well, the gamble worked for McLaren. They got the strategy right. That's all you can ask. We know that Verstappen is in a vein of form rarely seen in Formula One. Tomorrow in the Grand Prix, he tries to win 8 in a row. Hamilton to the inside at Stavelot corner. It's got a hint. They'll go wheel to wheel and they collide. They collide. Perez and Hamilton making contact. Hamilton got a great run through Stavelot corner, and then he's bagging wheels again as they make their way through. Perez without the momentum. Hamilton all over the back of him, and they came together.
Hamilton suddenly slowed a little bit down towards Blanchimont. I think he was just giving Perez a bit of space before that fast left-hander. I think they got away with it, but Perez is struggling at the moment. One Red Bull's flying, the other one's struggling, and Hamilton and now Sainz are right with him.
It's very nearly a 3-car battle for 4th position. Perez in the navy Red Bull, Hamilton in the black Mercedes, and Sainz in the background just waits for his opportunity to come out of the source and put pressure on as well. No grip for Sergio Perez, who's lost the place to Hamilton. We go side by side to Eau Rouge corner. Sainz trying to take 5th place, and he...
24 car ahead is Piastri, struggling with the left front, and we've got straight line speed on the main.
Very strange place to try and make a move, but Perez is just struggling, and now Leclerc's going to have a run. Checo's still looking at Carlos Sainz.
This is the battle for 5th. This is the battle for 6th. Is the second Ferrari going to go through? Is there room for all of them to make their way through the corner? Charles Leclerc with a tidy pass as well. Fine move for 6th position.
Full commitment. Lovely stuff from Leclerc, and now Norris is there coming down towards Rivage. Perez is having a really horrible lap here. Hamilton, Sainz, Leclerc, and now Lando Norris is going to try and make a move.
Norris trying the karting line and having the door closed in his face, trying to go the long way round of Rivage corner. And Perez very nearly dropped it into the gravel through turn 9. He's fighting that car right now. Look at the time he's lost already to the cars that have got past him.
I have no regrip.
And he's struggling so much. Norris is right with him coming down towards Spaniard. So difficult to make a move here, but he's offline everywhere, struggling to get this car turned, struggling to find any exits, got no confidence in the car.
Reset, bias, offset, recommend reset, bias, offset.
The lack of grip tells, and he's off into the gravel trap. Sergio Perez rejoins, but he'll rejoin out of the points-paying positions. Norris up to 7th. Daniel Ricciardo back in Formula One and currently back in the points.
Yeah, what a chance for Daniel Ricciardo now. Perez, no grip. That was the corner where Hamilton first had a chance. So he tried to up his pace and just couldn't get the car turned in. So no grip at the rear, nothing at the front either. And whatever he did under the safety car, he was looking quick before it, but the tyres have obviously...
I have no regrip.
Grip at all.
Well, let's have a look at it again. This is where it all began for Sergio Perez. Lewis Hamilton looking for the move on the second part of Stavelot.
Yeah, he gets his car right up the inside, and it's very, very close. They get away with it. It's under investigation, but I think that'll be probably a little racing incident, just a tap between the two. They were so close again to having the front wing of Hamilton and the side pod of Perez make contact.
This is Hamilton in the wheel tracks of Pierre Gasly, the blue Alpine ahead of us.
Perez in front has damage.
Hamilton with a lot of confidence in comparison now. You can see Gasly working the steering wheel far more, using more of the road. Hamilton is a 4-time winner of the Grand Prix here in Belgium.
He's going quickly as well. Now he's clear of Perez on that lap. He was half a second quicker than Piastri, who's the next car ahead. So Piastri will be really hoping that Gasly can keep these guys at bay because they're coming pretty quickly towards second. There goes Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. Here is the Alpine in third. Stunning result if he can keep this for Gasly. Not many laps to go. It's over in a flash, this sprint. And he's got Lewis Hamilton now bearing down on him. You can see the experience of Hamilton there, finding the wet patch, keeping these intermediates alive.
Hamilton using more of the road now, but with the confidence. He's trying to use different parts of the circuit. Gasly checking the mirrors. Hamilton getting ever closer as he moves into contention for the top 3. Hamilton had a rapid first sector. He's been quick all the way through there. Now we get to the drying line. That'll be wearing away the grooves on these intermediate tyres.
And watch out, because we've got Carlos Sainz right behind us as well as we ride on board, looking at Pierre Gasly in third. Sainz is really in the wheel tracks, ready for any mistake from Hamilton as well. He might fancy a top 3.
Okay, Checo, we're going to box and retire the car. Box and retire the car.
So the end of the sprint for Sergio Perez, who will try and regroup tomorrow. Looks very close in the background there between Ocon in the blue Alpine and Stroll. There is Stroll making the move for what would be, it's not the Aston Martin, it's George Russell who is trying to defend up against Esteban Ocon, and Esteban Ocon is all over the back of him. This is the battle for 9th position, and Ocon close right now.
I think Russell might have just come through on that last lap, made the move on Ocon there. Russell stayed out the extra lap. It's a real split of drivers who stayed out the extra lap and lost position, and those first drivers that pitted, and Russell lost out. It's not going to be a great weekend. He's defending now from Ocon coming back at him.
Ocon looks like he's got the pace here, and the Alpine driver is being sent to the curb. He hasn't got the room, and he has to tack.
Okay, Checo, we're going to box and retire the car. Box and retire the car.
That's the AlphaTauri ahead. Daniel Ricciardo, second race for the team, and he's in with a chance of a top 8 and a point in a sprint. This would be huge. Team's only scored 2 points so far this year, both in the hands of Tsunoda. And Hamilton's been given a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision.
Extraordinary stuff. We'll get confirmation for you in a few seconds' time. But Hamilton, with that wheel-banging moment with Sergio Perez, Hamilton given the 5-second penalty, now confirmed on your screen. And that's going to ruin his race.
The brakes are pretty... I can't really wake them up.
Understood.
So Verstappen has a 4.7-second lead, but isn't thrilled with the brakes. Lewis Hamilton will be furious with that penalty.
I can't quite believe he's been given that one, actually. Didn't look like either driver were particularly affected. I know Perez was tumbling down, but he seemed to have an issue already. And it looked like it was fairly 50-50. Hamilton was right up the inside. They were pretty much front wheel to front wheel as they came through that apex. And it was a soft tap. Cannot believe he's been given 5 seconds for it.
On the penultimate tour then, and that is a wide moment for Daniel Ricciardo. George Russell all over the back of the AlphaTauri now, and it appears that George Russell's got much superior grip on the intermediate tyres, and it's going to take Ricciardo with a late lunge. He's got no way to respond, and George Russell takes his place in the points, fighting his way back through, and Ricciardo has dropped down to 9th position. No way to respond. Intermediate tyres for different drivers in different...
Yeah, the brakes are pretty... I can't really wake them up.
Understood.
They'll be 7th and 8th. There is about 3.5 seconds, Hamilton to Norris. So Norris has got to stay close enough to Leclerc. They've all got to stay bunched up for Norris to take a gain out of Hamilton's penalty. And Hamilton's stuck behind Pierre Gasly still, who's driving fantastically in, the whole day, actually. Good qualifying, great execution from Alpine. He's still there in third on merit at the moment.
This is George Russell standing on the power and having better traction than Daniel Ricciardo. He gets past the Australian down to turn 1. This is Charles Leclerc dancing to the edge of the grip at turn 9. Norris closing in there. So Hamilton 0.8 of a second away from Gasly, but that 5-second penalty, which you know he's going to disagree with. Sometimes if a driver retires from a collision, that can add to the weight of the penalty, but I think Perez was struggling before that. As we go back to the race leader, who is heading on to the final tour once he gets through the chicane and Blanchimont corner.
Well, Perez was all at sea before. That's why Hamilton was there in the first place, and he was just right alongside at the apex. He was a little bit behind coming in, got alongside at the apex. So more space for Checo. It was very, very close between the two of them, and it was just a slight touch between them.
Well, this is a big day for Oscar Piastri, who looks like he's set for the top 3 for the first time in any Formula One race. Max Verstappen continues this run. Red Bull look like they're set to win all 14 races so far this year, 3 sprints and 11 Grand Prix. But Gasly is trying to hang on because it could still yet unravel for him. If he fights Hamilton, it could let by Carlos Sainz.
What do you do if you're the engineer now of Pierre Gasly? Do you tell him that Hamilton's got a 5-second penalty not to fight him? Or does that then make Pierre think, oh, I'll let him go through, and then you bring yourself into trouble with Sainz anyway? I think you've got to just crack on. But he doesn't need to fight with Hamilton. That's the difficult dilemma there for Gasly. That's the best chance that anyone's got of making a move, though, up the Kemmel Straight to Les Combes. that we've seen so far in this one. Make a move anywhere when the tyres are right.
Well, what a story for McLaren and Oscar Piastri. The last couple of Grand Prix, it's been second place for Lando Norris. In the sprint today, it looks like it's going to be second place for Oscar Piastri, who has been strong throughout all conditions so far in this car this weekend. The battle that's still in play is between the Alpine, that have been in the top 3 earlier this year in the Monaco Grand Prix with Esteban Ocon. It's the other Frenchman across the other side of the garage, Pierre Gasly, looking for his best result since he joined the team at the start of the year. But guess who's in the lead? For a couple of laps there, we thought it might be an opportunity to have a different winner in Formula One, but Verstappen on the restart was super committed, and he holds the lead into the final corners of the third sprint race of the year. He's done all the hard work, and he's getting ready for a very familiar feeling. In the country of his birth, he has just a couple of corners to go before he sees the checkered flag first. Max Verstappen. Verstappen wins the sprint in Belgium after retaking the lead from Oscar Piastri. A superb performance, but what a story from the 22-year-old Australian who scores his best results in any Formula One race in the sprint. P2 for McLaren, it's P3 for Alpine, and Pierre Gasly, his best result of the season so far. Piastri's best result all time in his short Formula One career. Hamilton came home in 4th, but when you apply the penalty, it's Sainz in 4th, Leclerc in 5th, then Lando Norris, and the Mercedes, the last 2-point scorers, 7th and 8th. Here's the winner.
Nicely done. Kept your head put up.
Yeah, that was not bad.
Great job, Max. One more to do tomorrow. Well done.
And after the penalty, there was just 1/10 between Hamilton and Russell as well. Russell coming through with better pace at the end as Hamilton was stuck. But whatever happens, best strategy, not so good strategy, rain, dry, whatever it is Max Verstappen at the front. And it's generally, in race trim, Max Verstappen comfortably at the front. And that was the case again today. 6.5 seconds between the top.
Great job, Oscar. Great job.
Awesome job, everybody. Good job on the call for Inters.
He said after the shootout, it's amazing to be disappointed. Well, he will be elated, Oscar Piastri, and so will Pierre Gasly. Back in the top 3 in Formula One, and that's a big moment for him. It's a sprint race, it's not a full Grand Prix, but that's a big moment for a team.
Nicely done. Kept your head put up.
Yeah, that was not bad.
Great job, Max. One more to do tomorrow. Well done.
Van Ocon that had the podium so far in Monaco.
Right, and there you have it. That is the sprint race for the Belgian Grand Prix. I'll obviously be back tomorrow for the Grand Prix as well. So if you want to follow us for the same thing again, but it's the live timing and whatnot, the graphics there. We will be back for the Grand Prix tomorrow as well. The best thing to do is to, obviously, if you're subscribed to the channel, if you're watching on YouTube, that's make sure to click the notification bell. You'll know when we are live for that. And also, if you are watching us on Twitter, by the way, or X as it's now called, you can watch us on there as well. I've got to say the penalty, the 5-second penalty for Lewis Hamilton, you probably heard on the audio there on the commentary as well. It was a disgrace of a decision. I can't believe he's been given a penalty for that. Amazed. And if it wasn't Red Bull, if it was any other team, he probably wouldn't. Let's be honest. I'll get that off my chest because it was a really poor, terrible decision. But there you have it. Oscar getting second place. Gasly third, but of course the main leader on this, as it has been pretty much every race this season, is Max Verstappen. Okay, so I will be back tomorrow for the live race. Like I said, if you are new here, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter and so on. We'll be back with the live timings and live graphics for the Belgian Grand Prix. What should be hopefully a bit better because it'll be more than a few laps. And yeah, it'll be a different race entirely. So hope to see you all then. Until then, take care. And as always, I'll see you all again soon.